Hey YouTube, this is Neil Fox, creator of the Lucifer series, if you don't know who I am. This is a companion video to Lucifer on Islamo-Beelzebub. I think that's what I'll call it. Let me read this passage in Ouspensky's book, In Search of the Miraculous, that's quoting Gurdjieff as saying this. In so-called occult literature, you have probably met with the expression Kundalini, the fire of Kundalini, or the serpent of Kundalini. This expression is often used to designate some kind of strange force which is present in man and which can be awakened. But none of the known theories gives the right explanation of the force of Kundalini. Sometimes it is connected with sex energy, that is, with the idea of the possibility of using sex energy for other purposes. This latter is entirely wrong because Kundalini can be in anything. Okay, I'll stop there for a second. Okay. Kundalini can be in anything, all right? There's no known definition of Kundalini that can be in anything that I know of, all right? And later in Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson, he uses the term Kundalina and equates it with Kunda buffer, which is a fictional device for retarding the consciousness in humans, an alien implant. And how that can be in anything is a real question. So that's the first discrepancy, that he's not talking about Kundalini as it is understood anywhere. Okay. He's getting at something else. And now I'll continue. And above all, Kundalini is not anything desirable or useful for man's development. All right, right there. My background is in Zen, Tao, and Kundalini. So, I don't blame anyone for reading a sentence like that and just, don't want anything to do with this guy ever again. He's a false teacher. I understand that. When I didn't even know this passage existed until, I don't read Ouspensky, so this guy brought this to my attention the other day in a comment, and I've been chasing it down ever since. And I told him in a private video that I sent to him, if he really means this, he's false. It's false doctrine. It's just, it's outrageous. And then he goes on to say, it is very curious how these occultists, by occultists he means the theosophists in Europe of his day, okay? These were the prototype scene for the New Age. And we've all met Bliss-Ninnies and love zombies, and I talk about that in the other video, people who are really spaced out from this kind of meditation where they're just withdrawing farther and farther from the world, all right? And G had a real problem with that, and I have a real problem with that. I'm on the same page with G about that kind of issue. I don't judge people who are like that because, they're running away from something, and, you got to be gentle with it, come down on them about it. But, for my own part, it's not anything I want to emulate in my own practice. So he says, it is very curious how occultists have got hold of the word from somewhere, but have completely altered its meaning, and from a very dangerous and terrible thing have made something to be hoped for and to be awaited as some blessing. Okay, Kundalini as a discipline, it'll keep you young. If you bring the right approach to Kundalini, it gives you a youthful vitality. It brings heart to your relationships, and it grounds you in a very centered way for just everyday problem solving, if you're doing it in a centered way. A lot of people in the New Age, you'll see it on YouTube. It's always about opening the heart chakra. It's never from down in the gut, okay, ever. And it's the third eye. It's escape. They're escaping into the astral. There is some legitimate psychic content to it, even in borderline psychotics that I've met over the years. But it's still just part of an ongoing confusion. Okay, like they're hung up on a drug, and that is very, very, very bad. Okay, it's nothing to be, like I say, emulating. Don't make them your models, or you will get lost. And then he closes with the famous statement, in reality, Kundalini is the power of imagination, the power of fantasy, which takes the place of a real function. Now, I've heard that sentence before, but it never bothered me because I'm going on Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson, where he doesn't even use the word Kundalini. Okay, Wikipedia has it that he does use the word Kundalini in this book, and he doesn't. He coins the word Kundalina. Okay, and you'll see Kundalina on the internet, but people do that because they think you're misspelling the word Kundalini. So they in their search, their keyword search thing, they put in Kundalini in case somebody misspelled, and they'll come to their website, okay? And I think there's a song or a band or something that calls itself Kundalini. But I mean, it's a word he made up. It's not a Sanskrit word. If you break down Kundalini, Kundala means serpent in Sanskrit. That leaves you with I and in, and the English word in. In serpent is one way of approaching it. If you rearrange the letters to Kundala and then the letters that are remaining I in. But it'd probably be better if you looked up the Greek word in, the equivalent of iota, the Greek letter iota and nu. I think that's their letter for in. And put that together. In means a Jewish unit of measure, for liquid measure, like saying a half pint of serpent. Okay? And Kundala in, you break that down Kabbalistically, you've got a very, very strong, powerful, and incredibly creative force going on. But Kundalini is basically something really funky that just blows up in your face, as anything that ends in infinity has no form at all. That's what you better watch out for in Crowley, because he does that a lot. Gives you something that looks so great it ends in infinity. Man, you just nuked yourself. Kundalini would be, if you broke it up the same way, it would be Kundala, it would be Kudali, okay, which is a famous river in India. And Beelzebub describes geographically India as Pearl Land, and it's defined by two rivers. And so, and then the Greek word for Jewish ounce, pint, I don't know what the measurement is, what the equivalent would be, but it's a liquid measure of this river, Kundali, okay? And that's something to look at. And in river means something. And the Sanskrit word, if you reverse the letters I in to ni, means to lead. That's another little clue. In all of this, what I get from it over the last day or so, really going over this closely, is that unless you have a fundamentally restructured approach to Kundalini, you will get lost, okay? You'll also become complacent in your concepts, and the kind of radical deconstruction that Gurdjieff demands of his students will dull out. And this is such a danger to him that he overstates a lot about Kundalini privately to his students that Ouspensky blabbed about in his book. But when it's put in the book that Gurdjieff intended to be read publicly, it does come with a lot of disclaimer. There's a lot of polemics going on, and he really is down on Eastern monasticism, and I think he feels that it renders the insights of Buddhism almost meaningless, to a point where he just says there's nothing there anymore. So you have to understand the gist over and above the particulars. If you get lost in the particulars, there's no point in studying Gurdjieff. The gist is he's coming down on monasticism, and he's saying that Kundalini has problems, and it does. Of course it does. I belong to a Kundalini community. I've seen the trips. A lot of them. And this was the teacher had studied in India. So, I mean, and don't tell me he didn't have trips. I'm not going to defend it. I'm not going to defend any Kundalini group. I'm only going to defend that there's something there, and that you're drawn to it, and that you're going to experience some things that are really great. And it will keep you young, and it goes back to prehistory, prehistoric times, I'm sure. So, G is a false teacher if you take this on his face. And I've said that to this one person who brought this up, and it's false doctrine, certainly. But in my experience, when Beelzebub is praising something, he's usually half the time laughing at it, okay? And then when he's condemning something, he's demanding you look at it far more deeply than you ever have. Peace. See ya.